But marriage is provided for under the Constitution of Uganda, and therefore in coming up with this law, Chair, I was guided by that provision because we don't have an existing piece of legislation to actually speak to this provision of the Constitution. Okay. And therefore, I want to really appeal to members that in having this law in place, we shall actually be protecting the family. And you all know that the family is a basic unit in society that needs protection. Okay. So it is not Opendi's bill.
Two last ones.
Not what
I'll give you an opportunity to wind up.
I don't know how many stakeholders have been met, but yesterday we met as the Women's Pro Bono Initiative, whereby we had quite a number of women members of parliament, and their concern was the mover is the chairperson of UROPA, Uganda Women Parliamentary Association, and they felt that they were not adequately consulted, and they were worried that the bill is moving to the committee and maybe eventually at the floor, and they were asking why the chairperson, who is the mover, has not been able to adequately consult them. And actually by the end of yesterday, they had picked some prominent women, because women as stakeholders need to have their say as stakeholders. So they picked, and one of them was Honorable Miriam Matembe. They said, please go and talk to the mover to come and have a proper voice of the women. I beg to submit.
Now, the matter is now beyond the mover. The bill was read for the first time. It was referred to the committee. You will say it. Let me respond. The matters are now beyond the mover. We had the first reading. The matter is now before the committee. And the mover has come to present the bill before the committee. Actually, we have just started. The feedback I'm giving you is that we have just started the process. And we are going to invite as many stakeholders as possible, including traveling to the citizens in the districts or regions. We'll try to do that, to consult with the people. And also including external benchmarking trips. So we have just started, inform those ladies to, instead of going to the mover, to write to the chairperson or either gender or legal to come and appear before the committee. We will give them audience. Yeah. You wanted to say something, Honorable Sarah, about that?
Surprising. From the time I was granted leave, it took me 2 years to actually return to the floor. We've held various meetings with the women, but some of them, it seems, would not show up. We've held meetings with FIDA. We held meetings with UONET. Miriam Matembe was in those meetings, even speaking in those meetings. So it is really complicated. It is shocking, actually. And even I have met those same ladies calling themselves the pro bono. And what one of them said is that they were not properly, they were not as organized as they are now. So during the consultations, they were not yet as organized as they are now. Yes, but otherwise we have met them, and most of those institutions were the ones funding the consultations, because I don't have money. Yes, it's a private member's bill. They were the ones funding, so it's very unfortunate. And this is, I told them, coming up with a bill before it comes back for second reading. It is a process. So they can prepare what they want to present and bring before the committee. Otherwise, as of now, the bill is no longer mine, it's property of Parliament.
So that's the matter. As a matter of fact, I also received calls from some women, powerful women in the civil society, claiming that they don't know anything about this bill. I told them to come to the committee and explain. So we as members, I urge you, members of the two committees, what we can do, the best thing we can do to this bill is to understand it, such that from any angle they come, we can be able to interact with them. Yeah. So you read the bill, internalize it, to give us time to interact with them. Now, my final two is
I think providing for the rights of children and these women who are in those relationships and property is because property has remained contentious, and you are very much aware of the various cases that have been before court. The most recent one being there was one of a lady whose husband paid her fees. I think later took the man to court. I think you all know what the ruling was. The most recent and interesting one was, yes, the most recent one was of the lady who had been they were married with this man for 20 years. And she was in a polygamous relationship. So they gave her, the courts awarded her an equivalent of curtains as her only contribution to the marriage. So the issue of property, you cannot take it away, because these are two people that come, live together, acquire property together. Sometimes because of too much love, the wife doesn't care. The property is put in the man's name. Or the land belongs to the man, but it is the woman who has built the house. So you cannot completely take away the issue of property on dissolution of this marriage. So, Honorable Dur, I don't know whether you would be comfortable. I know for you, you may be very careful, and you are very comfortable with your wives. You are comfortable with them. Yes, but there are situations, and you have seen of recent, by the way. I don't know if you have been following some TVs, some of these TVs, you know, the most recent story of the white man who married a lady from Uganda. And after the marriage, they even have a child. What happened exactly? The woman decided to make the man's life difficult. And it seems the intention from the beginning of getting married with this man was actually to get property. Because the man bought property, and now he cannot access his own property, which he used his money to buy. The woman wants to take over all the property. And yet she does not want to live with this man anymore. Actually, she filed for divorce. So property is becoming an issue. This is why, Chair, it's important for us in this marriage bill to critically really look at it.
Yeah.
Because you must, while we talk of equal rights, you must also explain, according to the courts, your contribution to that property, not just getting the property. And it would be good for us to have this as a law, so that courts are guided, because they have been contradicting judgments. I told you about the one of the curtains. In others, actually in another recent case, there was, I don't remember the names, but that one they divided 50-50, sell the property and divide the money equally, because the woman was able to prove that she actually made a contribution to that family. And I must say that in all this, it is the children that suffer most. So if we don't provide for the rights of these children in either the formal marriages or in those presumed marriages, we'll be doing a disservice to these children, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that suffer most. So Honorable Dur was saying that I think 90 seems to contradict notice of intention to marry, and then in 90 we are talking about a breach of, but please note that in 90 it is a breach of promise to marry. And subclause 2 says a party may petition court for return of gifts given in contemplation of marriage which has not been contracted solely due to the other party's breach of promise to marry. And you must know that, you know, I may promise to marry, but then you have breached even the trust that I had in you, and I found you maybe with the ex, I mean, nobody can come up and sue you that you promised to marry me. When you yourself, you have not conducted yourself in a manner as to, for me to keep my promise. Yeah, so, yes. As the move of this bill, when you read the interpretation clause, irretrievable breakdown of marriage means a situation where the petitioner proves to court that he or she can no longer live together with his or her spouse as a husband and wife. Chair, we left this open because other than violence, domestic violence, other than, he was talking about adultery, there may arise other things. You have seen men who want to go the other side. I don't have to mention it. You want to live the natural way, and you want to force your wife. They want to go through the back door. So there are situations that arise in a marriage. That's why we said let's leave it open, other than trying to list them, because when we list them down, then we may tie a person in that tomorrow it's a ground that is not provided for. That's why we left it open. But if in the thinking of this committee you think you should carry them as they are, then, well, that is your decision. But otherwise, we felt there are so many reasons, by the way. When you interact with the various women, there are so many reasons why people have decided to apply to dissolve their marriages. So just having those three grounds for me is, I don't know, Honorable Taylor, I wanted to say something.
Yes, my system and the way it operates, the presiding officers are people from within the societies that we live. And if you were confronted with a situation, going by the example you have given, where even the judicial officer is one whose preference is the other side, and then you bring it as a challenge and a potential ground for separation, the judicial officer may see it otherwise, because he may look at it as normal. And that calls for a challenge of having an omnibus clause like the one we have as a ground for divorce without being specific on certain things. I know of the appeal process and all that, but by the time, you see, when you're applying for dissolution of a marriage, sometimes you need urgent issues like residence to be addressed. So you land on a judicial officer who sees things otherwise without any guiding. It's now left within, it's a matter of emotion, it's a matter of opinion, without any guiding principles. By the time that person goes to the next level of appeal, and maybe the case is listened to in detail, and you know how length of the judicial system can tend to be, that person will already be emotionally and mentally broken down. So leaving it general without specifications, I feel, is another form of injustice, especially to the people who seek to depend on it. Probably we could increase on the number of justifications and then put a general statement for others than just leaving it open.
Chair, I think that is, actually I have heard from the women's movement also trying to propose a similar thing, but I have no problem with that. If the committee feels
50-50, didn't they have children? And then I went to ask father, that fine, if they did not have. So what happens in this family where there are children, and probably you're dissolving, you have divided property, is there any provision that when a man has received his property, then this amount, this percentage is due for the children, and also the receiving woman also still has a responsibility to provide on her share that is for the children? Wouldn't we consider having provisions from either sides after receiving to know that there is something that needs to go for the children. Thank you.
But the issue, as I did indicate, the challenge of cohabitation. We have members of parliament today whose parents are cohabiting. They are not legally married. We had, yes, but assuming now a man wants to send away this woman, or vice versa, the woman wants to send away this man. We've had a case, by the way, of a member of parliament who sent away this man from her home, although later she lost elections because they had lived together for years. There is nothing like a contract. So, Chair, the challenge comes when people live together and acquire property together, when they are not legally married. At the end of the day, when they want to walk away from this relationship, what actually happens? Should it be to the disadvantage of one party? This, yes, this is the reason why.
Let me respond quickly. The issues of, for example, of children are well canvassed under the Children's Act. That's why even the provisions here for children are very few. Now, issues of property relating to people, to two people, whether as friends, are well canvassed under our laws of Uganda, completely. Because now those are two friends who have invested in property. And the laws are very clear on how to resolve those matters in court.
Chair, in the 2 years that I have sat in this office as Chair Uwopa, I have dealt with cases of people who have come to me reporting about I've lived with this man for, there was a woman who came all the way from Western Uganda. Let me not be specific. All the way from Western Uganda. And she camped here until she met me. I actually tried to give her some lawyers, I think, those who offer pro bono. They were not able to help. I had to get her my own lawyer who agreed to help her, and that she, as long as she facilitated his movement to Mbarara. She acquired this property with this man. They expanded the property. I think there are 8 semi-detached houses within a compound. The man later decided to marry somebody else. And upon wedding the other woman, because she could not stop the other wedding, she was not legally married. But at home, they knew her as married to this man. So what the man did now was to chase the woman away from this property. So what the woman did, of course, she had support from some leaders. They knew how she had struggled with this man before he became what he is. So using just, fortunately, some photos when the man one time visited their home, we were able to actually, the courts were able to save this woman and grant her part of that property for the sake of that child who was just 6 years old.
Okay. Conclude.
So, colleagues, you may think this is something small, but it is actually a big issue.
Yeah, we will give it enough
yes.
thought.
People live together, they are presumed to be married. The man or the woman walks away and wants to send the other party away. Now, how do you go when you have also contributed to actually the acquisition of that property?
Okay.
So it is not, I just plead with colleagues. I said, please don't look at yourselves, look at what goes on in society. And pity the many women and men who are going through a rough time. Even men today, because there are women who are economically empowered and taking care of men, but they are throwing them out of the homes now.
Final prayers, Honorable.
So, Chair, the issue of cohabitation and criminalizing it, I told you had a challenge around cohabitation. And we said, maybe let's have this clause so that it discourages people from cohabiting. Maybe they will go and formally register, just like we have bigamy. I have been asking for any case of a man who has been taken to court for bigamy and case and convicted for that offense. There is none. So, but people know that it is an offense, and some are careful not to engage in it. So it's the same way that we said, let's have this here, since cohabitation is we cannot provide for it as a marriage. There is all this, no, they can't separate. Has Honorable Duru separated? So, Chair, it is something, this is a food for thought. I want colleagues, let's make the law better, but let's have this law in place. It's actually a very important piece of legislation that would help, as I said, protect the family. And we all know that the foundation, the family unit, is the foundation of every society.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Parents, where they say you are not even married, you must go back to your home. And I always sympathize with such people, and maybe we need to find a way. How can we really genuinely say that these people were, there was consent and they came together? But when those people come, at times they lose. The person who is still alive, most likely a woman, they lose everything. And then there was recently, I saw it on the TV, where a man had lived with the woman for about 60 years. And when the man died, when the lady died, of course in advanced age, that was a bit, when you talk about 50, 60 years, you know that they have been together for a while. All the grandchildren, about certain number, not the children but grandchildren, took away the body and said we are taking it back home because he never paid dowry. So we need some standards to be able, which we can be followed legally, so that people not humiliated like it happened that time. So maybe we need to think about such. I'm not saying you have not done it, but there are those extreme cases that come up at times. Thank you.
The courts.
Okay, now